Histology is the study of tissues. Tissues are made up of collection of specialized cells which perform the same function. They are formed by cells and matrix. The matrix is the extracellular material, the material that surrounds the cell. It is composed of fibers and clear gel-like substance, extracellular fluid or ground substance, and contains minerals, gases, nutrients, wastes, and other chemicals. There are 4 types of tissues: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. They differ by their cell type, function, characteristic of matrix, and ratio of cells to matrix. Epithelial tissue is avascular, which means no blood supply. It also has tightly packed cells, very little to no space between cells, little to no matrix, that is the stuff outside of the cell. It does have a nerve supply via nerve ending found in the tissue. Epithelial tissue usually lines surfaces. It also functions to protect in secretion and excretion, absorption, filtration, primarily in urinary system and sensation. Epithelial tissue also has basement membrane. The basement membrane is a layer of large complex molecules such as collagen adhesive molecules and protein between epithelial tissue and the underlying tissue. It helps to anchor the epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue also have basal and apical surfaces. The basal surface touches the basement membrane, while the apical surface is the open and exposed of the top surface. The types of epithelial are determined by the number of layers and the shape of the cells. Simple epithelial have one layer of cells. Every cell touches the basement membrane. Within simple epithelial, there are 3 cell types: squamous, which is thin and squished. It is found in the air sacs and inner lining of the heart and blood vessels. Cuboidal, which is square and roundish. The cells have the same height and width. This is most commonly found in glands and ducts. Columnar is tall and narrow and rectangular in shape. Often they have microvilli and goblet cells. Goblet cells are mucus secreting cells. It is found in the stomach, intestine, gallbladder, uterus, and uterine tubes. Stratified epithelial have 2 or more layers of cells. It also has the cell shapes of squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. Stratified squamous is found in the skin, tongue, anal canal, vagina, and oral mucosa. Stratified cuboidal is found in the sweat glands and sperm and egg producing ducts. Stratified columnar are very rare and usually found where epithelial types meet, like pharynx, larynx, anal canal, and male urethra. Please note, you need both shape and layer to correctly name epithelial tissue. For example, simple squamous or stratified cuboidal. Then there is pseudostratified columnar, which is an unique type of tissue. It looks like multi-layered. It is technically very simple. Not all the cells of pseudostratified columnar reach the free surface, but all touch the basement membrane, which makes it simple and not stratified. We call the cells columnar because they are often long and thin. It is found in the respiratory tract and male urethra. Transitional epithelial has an odd cell appearance. It changes from flat to round on the surface in shape in order to stretch. It is found in the urinary tract and bladder. It is really important for stretching within the urinary system. This is the top row in this slide shows simple versus stratified epithelial tissue. The top left is example of simple. Every cell touches the basement membrane. If you notice in the middle picture, not all the cells go to the top, but every one touches the basement membrane. This is an example of pseudostratified epithelial tissue. It looks like the cells are stacked, but technically every cell touches the basement membrane. The top right shows stratified. Only one layer touches the basement membrane, and all other cells are stacked in layers on top of the bottom or basal layer. The second row shows the various shapes: squamous on the left, cuboidal in the middle, and columnar on the right. This is pseudostratified columnar with cilia and goblet cells. The cilia are the hair-like looking structure across the top of the cells. The goblet cells look like fatty globs that are packed between the cells. Pseudostratified columnar are commonly found in the upper respiratory tract. Here is our transitional epithelia. Notice their odd shapes and how they change as they go from basement membrane to the free surface. Next is connective tissue. Connective tissue consists mostly of fibers and ground substance with widely spaced cells. This greatly contrasts to epithelial cells or epithelial tissue that has little fibers and ground substance, and the cells are tightly packed together. It also differs from epithelial tissue in that it is vascular, has a blood supply. It also has a nerve supply. Connective tissue has many functions, but mainly it does what the name implies: connect. Connective tissue is used in the binding of the organs or enclosing of the organs, support of the body, keeping us straight, physical protection of vital organs, as in how the skull protects the brain, immune protection, for example, for the white blood cells that look for infectious microorganisms, movement. Our bones are levers for the muscles to act on. Energy storage in the form of lipids, heat production, and temperature regulation. And lastly, transportation of nutrients and gases via the blood. So the components of connective tissue. Connective tissue has two primary components, cells and matrix. There are a number of different cell types found in connective tissue. Stem cells are the basic building cells and will become whatever type of cell that is specialized for that tissue. Fibroblasts, they produce the fibers and ground substance. They are flat with wispy branches. Mast cells are found along blood vessels and secrete hormones that regulate blood flow and clotting. Macrophages are white blood cells that ingest and help get rid of particles and infectious microorganisms. Matrix. The matrix of the stuff outside of the cell has fibers and ground substance. Fibers are found in three forms: collagen or collagenous fibers are made up of collagen. Collagen is one of the most abundant protein in the body. They are tough and flexible and resist stretching. These types of fibers are going to be common in tendons, ligaments, and skin. They can also be found in cartilage and bone. Reticular have thin collagen fibers covered by glycoprotein. Glycoprotein is a protein with a carbohydrate bonded to it. They are most commonly associated with the lymphatic system and help provide a sponge-like framework for the spleen. Elastic are very thin collagen fibers that stretch and recoil. They are made up of protein called elastin that allows the fibers to spring back after being stretched. They are found in areas that need to be able to stretch like arteries and skin. Ground substance. Ground substance is usually featureless and has a gelatinous, rubbery consistency due to three classes of very large molecules. It acts as shock absorber and protects the cells. Glycosaminoglycan is a long polysaccharide composed of amino sugars and uronic acid. It is negatively charged, so it attracts ions and can absorb and hold water. Proteoglycan is a large molecule that looks like test tube brush or pipe cleaner. It forms a thick, clumpy gel that shows the movement of pathogens. It helps create structural bond between the cells and it holds the tissues together. Adhesive glycoproteins are a protein carbohydrate complex and is used as an adhesive. Water is another major component of ground substance. Loose fibrous connective tissue has lots of open spaces. This space is formally ground substance that has been dissolved. The cells are not in any particular arrangement like we saw in epithelial tissue, and there are lots of fibers. There are two types of loose fibrous connective tissue. First is areolar tissue. Areolar tissue has a loose arrangement of collagen and elastic fibers, scattered cells of various types, lots of ground substance, and blood vessels. It is found underlying nearly all epithelial tissue, surrounds blood vessels and nerves. Can also be found in the esophagus, trachea, and between muscles. It functions to be loosely bind epithelial tissue and provides blood and nutrients for epithelium. Remember that epithelial tissue does not have a blood supply. It also provides passages for blood vessels and nerves to other tissue. Reticular tissue. Reticular tissue also has a loose arrangement of fibers, mainly reticular fibers. In addition, there are numerous lymphocytes and other blood cells. It is found in the lymph nodes, spleen, thymus, bone marrow, and functions as supportive framework for the lymphatic system. The arrangement of the fibers allow for filtering of lymph fluid. Adipose tissue looks like big empty cells, but they are not empty, but they look almost clear. There is also a good blood supply. Adipose functions as the fat under the skin and rests on the heart surface and surrounds kidneys and eyes. It is a form of energy storage, provides insulation, protects organs, and gives shape to the body. Dense fibrous connective tissue. They are found in two forms, regular and irregular. Dense regular is strong and found in thin sheath. It is characterized by few cells but numerous collagen and elastic fibers. Fibers occupy more space than cells are ground substance, so the fibers really stand out. Dense regular has an organized wavy pattern. This is how it gets its name. The fibers is densely packed together but in an organized parallel manner. This particular arrangement resists stretching in one direction. It is found in ligaments and tendons. Dense irregular also has few cells and a lot of collagen fibers, but the fibers are not organized. They are all over the place. This arrangement of fibers resists stretching in multiple directions. Dense irregular is found in the dermis and forms fibrous sacs around some organs like kidney. Cartilage. Cartilage has a flexible, rubbery matrix. Their fibroblasts are specialized and called chondroblasts. Cartilage is the only connective tissue that is avascular. There are three forms of cartilage. Elastic cartilage, the top photo, has a lot of elastic fibers and can be found in the external ear and epiglottis of the throat. Hyaline cartilage, middle one, is the most common. It has clear, glassy appearance and contains collagen fibers, but they are thin and not always visible. It can be found in joints and the vocal cords and is a precursor to bones in juveniles. Fibrocartilage, the bottom picture, has visible bundles of collagen and is found in intervertebral discs. Bone looks like three rings. The rings are the matrix and called lamellae and form around the central canal. The small cavities around the lamellae are called lacunae, and where mature bone cells, osteocytes, are found. In bone, we also have other cells such as osteogenic cells, osteoblasts, and osteoclasts. Osteogenic cells are stem cells. Osteoblasts are bone-forming cells and osteoclasts are bone-destroying cells. We will discuss the unique properties of bone tissue further during the skeletal system. Blood has red blood cells that are little disc-shaped cells and look like spaghetti O. The big purple stained cells are white blood cells. The space between the cells is filled with blood plasma. We will also discuss blood in greater detail later in the semester with the blood and cardiovascular chapters. Muscle tissue. The next category of tissue is muscle. There are three forms of muscle tissue. Skeletal is for movement and is voluntary, meaning you have conscious control over it. It is characterized by long cylindrical cells that have striations, the stripes that run across the cells, and multiple nuclei. Cardiac is found in the heart and involuntary. You do not have conscious control over it. It is characterized by shorter and branched cells, striations, and intercalated discs. Intercalated discs are the slightly darker bands where two cells meet. They allow the cardiac cells to communicate. Smooth muscles are longer, tapered cells that are also involuntary. There are no striations or intercalated discs. You will find smooth muscle in systems such as digestive and respiratory tract. Neurons and neuroglial cells. Nervous tissue is recognized by big star-shaped cells called neurons. It will also contain neuroglial cells or helper cells. We will spend more time on this later when we do the nervous system. But for now, be able to recognize it and show that it is a distinct form of tissue. Membranes. A membrane is a flat sheet or layer made up of epithelial tissue that's on the surface and a layer of connective tissue underneath. There are few different types of membranes. The first type is mucous membrane. Mucous membrane has passages that open to the exterior of the body. For example, the digestive, respiratory, reproductive, and urinary tracts. There are three layers. Epithelium, the type of epithelial tissue varies based on the organ and system. Areolar, and this membrane actually has a layer of smooth muscle to help move things along. This membrane functions in absorption, secretion, and protection. And goblet cells. Goblet cells are often found in this membrane for the production of mucus. Serous membranes is simple squamous epithelium over a thin layer of areolar tissue. It produces serous fluid, which is watery fluid that lubricates. It is found on the organs and lines that surrounds cavities. The fluid produced by the serous membrane helps reduce friction as organs can rub against each other when they move. This membrane lines cavities that are not exposed to the exterior of the body. It is found in the three primary body cavities as well as pleural and pericardial, which are smaller cavities inside the thoracic. The membrane has two layers, the parietal membranes and visceral membranes. The parietal lines the actual cavity like along the inside of your rib cage, and the visceral surrounds the actual organ. We'll come back to this in more detail when we do the cardiovascular and respiratory chapters. The serous membrane can also be found in abdominopelvic cavity and is called the peritoneal. Synovial membrane. This membrane is made only of connective tissue and associated with joints. It secretes synovial fluid which helps to protect and lubricate joints. We will see this one again when we discuss joints. Endothelium. The endothelium lines the vessels of the circulatory system. It is made up of simple squamous epithelial tissue resting on a thin layer of areolar connective tissue. Because it is so thin, it allows for an exchange of nutrients and gases from the blood to the surrounding tissues. Again, we will talk about this one later on in the semester when we discuss the cardiovascular system. Cutaneous membrane. This is commonly known as skin, and we will actually be discussing this in the next module.